Tonight on DrWhitty Today, we're honored to welcome Jadarius Evans, a clinical mental health therapist, researcher, and advocate who is pushing the field forward with heart, purpose, and cultural truth. Jadarius works with children, adolescents, adults, and families, blending multiple therapeutic approaches to meet people where they are. He is the founder of Project Heart, a groundbreaking photo voice initiative amplifying the lived experiences of Black men and youth and turning those stories into community dialogue, research, and policy action. As South Carolina's legislative ambassador for the National Board of Certified Counselors and an active leader in the South Carolina Counseling Association, he's building bridges between communities, mental health professionals, and policymakers to expand access to culturally responsive care. And tonight, we're pairing his mission with the power of Sisu, that deep, quiet, unshakable strength that rises when life gets heavy and quitting is not an option. Listeners and viewers, get ready for a conversation about tapping into the kind of strength leaders rely on, communities admire, and people remember. A moment we meet the power inside that refuses to fold. Please welcome our hosts, Jadarius Evans and DrWhitty. All right. Good evening, everybody out there. Glad you tuned in to DrWhitty Today. We have an awesome guest with us. You heard it from the top of the show, and I'm not going to repeat all of that. But Jadarius Evans, welcome to DrWhitty Today. And before we get started, because we've been waiting for this for a long time, I just want you to quickly just say hello to the folks out there, and just let us know how your day has been going thus far.
Thank you all for having me. It's been a pretty busy day. There's a lot of networking. I had a few sessions earlier today, but yeah, I'm here. I'm excited. I've been really excited to get on here for quite a while.
All right. So thank you. And I'm just so glad to have you stated before. So we're gonna get this thing started. So here we go. So ladies and gentlemen, leaders and learners, welcome back to another electrifying episode of DrWhitty Today, where we don't just talk about life, but we transform it. So tonight, we're going to be stepping into a space most people never explore. That's a place inside of us where grit is born, where courage grows, and also where quitting is not, and not just not, but never an option. All right. So a place to finish, or the inhabitants, I think it's from Finland, called Sisu, is a force that shows up where the tank is empty. It's the strength that rises when the pressure hits, and it's a voice inside that whispers, I will not quit, or don't give up. And tonight, we're going to take a look at that power, and we're going to recognize that human spirit that every single day we need. And Jadarius Evans is going to help us tap into that power. So together, we're diving into what Sisu looks like in real life, in struggle and healing, and in leadership and identity, and in the moments when life tries to break us down. So everybody out there, buckle up, take a breath, get your mind right, stay focused, because after tonight, we are never going to look at strength the same way again. So this is where Sisu lives. This is DrWhitty Today. Let's get into it. All right. So we're going to go right into it and get us going here. So for listeners who may not be familiar with your work, Jadarius, can you share a little bit about your journey into mental health counseling and what inspired you to focus on expanding culturally responsive care?
Yeah. I say my journey kind of really began through a combination of personal experiences, but also really just witnessing what was happening in my community. For many out there, I'm from South Carolina, a small town in South Carolina called Chester. So growing up, I would see a lot of people in my community just carrying this enormous emotional weight, distress, trauma, grief, all this stuff, the pressure, all in the one big wrap gift. And many of them didn't have spaces where I think for me personally, from what I saw, felt safe talking about this stuff. They just kind of persisted and carried on with those experiences. And often um, I would look to those people. And those people were people that I looked up to because that's all I had. Often those people were just expected to keep going and keep working and keep surviving. And I think as I got older, I became one of those people. I became one of those people who also carry those things, you know. And then I got to a point where I was curious about what was happening beneath the surface with me with those experiences because I didn't understand. I'm thinking, oh, this is just life. This is the natural progression of things. This is what people do when they grow up. They carry these things and maybe they don't talk about them. Maybe they do talk about them. But then I started to realize, I think, really when my grandfather passed away in my first year of college. I went to college the year 2020. So it was definitely a weird time. It was my first semester there. And my grandfather passed away. And I really had to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, something has to change. Because if it doesn't, then I don't know where I'm going to be at. So from there, in undergrad at Clemson University, my first year, COVID isolation, we having to wear a mask all the time, wasn't the best year for me, but I made the biggest step in my life to change from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I changed my major and I decided to go within psychology, which I've always had an interest in when I was younger. I just never felt that was the place for me. I didn't feel like it was a place, someone that looks like me could be. And so as a black man entering the counseling field, that I think awareness became even more personal. The representation very much matters in mental health care. And it kind of goes to your cultural piece of the question. Man, cultural understanding things just matter. And when you don't, that's where we lead to this cycle of a whole city, even or a whole county, just continues the cycle of carrying all these things. Not necessarily cultural in the sense that I'm a black man, but culture in the sense, what's the culture of this town? What's the culture of this county? What are they living? What are they going through? That's what I mean by culturally understanding things matters. So when people walk into, for instance, therapy, they want to feel like the person sitting across from them just understands the broader context of their life. When in actuality, I mean, I don't, and I never will fully. But what I can do is support you in a culturally competent way, where I know the nuances as to how you get where you are now and why you sit in front of me. Um, I think this realization, for me has been a journey. It continues to be a journey and will always be a journey that I walk on. Um, I don't think you can ever be fully culturally competent. It is something within my profession that you will always continue to work towards and never attain. And that's something we all have to live with because culture is constantly changing. So the realization, like I said, just pushed me into culturally responsive care. And it's just more so care that doesn't just treat symptoms, but also recognizes that identity, history, environments, and community are all a part of the healing process. And taking all that into account, that's where we want to be. That's where I want to be. So yeah, I think today, I do a lot of different things that lean towards culturally competent care, lean towards culturally responsive care, but also a lot of these things I personally just feel like are from me. A lot of these things are just what I enjoy to do, what I want to be, and what I want to be seen as, and how I want to see myself. Back to that moment for me back in 2020, looking in the mirror, like where do I want to be versus where I am now. I'm trying to get to the point where I want to look in the mirror and be like, I'm where I want to be, and I'm going to stay here. So, yeah, that's. I think that's a good bit of, yeah.
Thank you. It's interesting that you talked about the way culture continues to evolve, and that's how I went about adopting my research study, because, like you said, um, cultural competence. Nobody's ever going to be fully culturally competent, and so there were a few doctors that sat around and discussed that term, and so now I don't know if you've heard of the term cultural humility, but that's how the term cultural humility was born, because there were people that were experiencing care, and they didn't feel like that the person that they were sitting across from understood their plight or their pain or what they was going through. As a matter of fact, um, my particular study evolved from the fact that there were women who were dying from pregnancy, um,
Mhm.
and there was this belief, I guess, in the medical system that Black and Hispanic women, uh, when they say that they're in pain, they're not really in pain. That they somehow can endure this pain more than anybody else, and so doctors wouldn't prescribe them pain medication, things.
Mhm.
So as you talked about that, I thought that was interesting because you're right. Nobody's ever going to know all there is to know about their own culture or anybody else's culture. And so to say that I'm culturally competent means that I've reached a state of know-it-all. That I've how people say they've been there, done that, and got it.
Mhm.
There's I know all there is to know about my culture and every culture I studied, when that's just no way possible, because cultures are always evolving. There's always new language. There's always new ways of doing things. There's always something um, that continues to grow. And if you stop, then you can't grow. And so that's what tends to happen, not only in the medical field, but in other fields, is you have people that stop and they don't grow and they don't learn, they don't evolve. And so they don't understand the next generation. And so I believe that's where cultural humility comes in, that when we have more culturally humble people in roles, they can better know how to relate and respond to different individuals and connect to people across the board. So, thank you for your response. All right. So, next, we're going to have you work with children, adolescents, adults, and families. So, from your experience, what are some of the biggest mental health challenges that you see affecting our community today?
Hmm. Specifically the Black community or just community in general?
I'll say the Black community.
Okay. I say in my work specifically with children, and then I'll start with children first. Children and adolescents. I see, actually, I can say children, adolescents, and adults and families, right? Because I think this all ties into this one big system. So I see several patterns that consistently emerge when we talk about maybe mental health within the Black community. Um, One major thing is chronic stress. Chronic stress is something I feel like I see very often, and it shows up differently, but it can be put under the same tether of chronic stress. Many individuals I feel are navigating a constant accumulation of pressure economically, community safety, systemic inequalities, and just everyday responsibilities. Even that goes more for my little ones than anything, but it can be said for my adults as well. I feel like when those stresses stack over time, they can begin to impact the emotional well-being. So in ways that people may not often immediately recognize, and that's why I say it applies to everybody. Because with these kids that I'm seeing now, eventually that stacking of stress is going to show up in the present day when they get older. So I have first graders, right? I have 6 year olds, 7 year olds. So these kids are experiencing this chronic stress every day, every week. And they're learning these things through this chronic stress through a lens that is almost blurry. Eventually, when they turn 17, 18, then turn 24, 25, they're going to still be looking through that blurred lens. And they're going to be adults who are dealing with chronic stress that was never, I mean, hopefully with me, it'll get, addressed. But for other people who are not as fortunate, never addressed. And they're continuously looking through this cloudy lens that is guiding them through life. Another, I think, important thing is this one's more of a social one, stigma around mental health, especially I would say within our young men in the community and just many environments. Vulnerability is just often discouraged. So not just in the therapeutic space, but just in general, we discourage vulnerability with our men, and that in turns in the Black community, it harms the men immediately, but in the long run, it harms our women as well. So we harm our Black men by telling them not to be vulnerable, and they become hardened, they become stoned, and then eventually they become hardened and stoned for our Black women as well, and that hurts them, and they're at the bottom of the totem pole, taking in kind of what you were saying to your study. They don't feel as much pain. They're not going to experience this, but in actuality, they're feeling all the pain. They're just building this resilience towards it because we're used to it. So that stigma piece, and even pushing narratives such as, you know, boys will be boys, or you got to stop crying, don't show no tears. Those are things that I'm seeing that in the long run not only affect the men, but also affect the women and everybody else in our community. Um, People are taught that showing emotion or asking for help is a sign of weakness, and that belief just causes people to eventually suppress their pain rather than process it. And a lot of the work I do with my youth is helping them to understand that it's not a weakness. If anything, it's a strength to be able to process that pain, to show up and be vulnerable. And I can also tie this into intergenerational trauma and experiences that are passed down through families, if we want to tie it all together, families and communities. When trauma just gets unprocessed across the generation, it can shape how a whole system functions and how all individuals within that system understand themselves, their emotions, and just their relationships. And this is the normal. Someone outside of that family system is like, y'all do things a little different around here. And it's like, yeah, because we're all living in a cycle that was consistently passed down from my great grandparents to my grandparents to now my mom and my dad. Now it's to me, and I'm gonna pass it to my kids. But I think what's equally important is to acknowledge, like I said, strength. We often frame as being independent, but in actuality, I think that already exists in our community. Strength, that is, exists in our community, and back to culture, those cultural traditions, so those deep family bonds, those spiritual bonds, the creativity and the resilience that we have cultivated over the years and helped our people to survive and thrive through adversity, that is strength. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to Sisu, but um, back to even culturally responsive care, it's not simply to focus on the problems, which a lot of people think therapy is, we just focus on the problems. No, it's to kind of recognize and build upon the existing strengths and wisdom that was already laid up and given to us, and the things that we already carry. So, a lot of my kids may feel like they have this need and urge that they got to fight to survive. They got to fight to be sure that they're strong. Okay, cool. You want to fight? You can fight. But let's talk about one, why you think fighting is the answer, and two, based on knowing the why, is that what you want to continue to do? And if so, well, let's talk about it. Let's process that. Let's see what fighting gets you, and just being real about it. So that's mostly for my youth. With my adults is a little different because, like I said, they've experienced these things and they're living a life through a blurred lens, and they're wanting to change it now. They're saying, I don't like this stuff. I don't like how I'm showing up. I want to change it. So we still do the processing of the before. Not as in depth. We don't need to go in depth because back to culturally compensating, cultural humility, I can see how we get here, but where do you want to go? You don't have to tell me and rehash everything you've gone through, but if you need to, we can. What I'm here for is to give you a space where maybe not in the Black community or maybe not anywhere you've had before, and you can process things related to stigma, your intergenerational trauma, and your chronic stress, and feel for once that this weight I don't have to carry on my shoulders alone. So yeah, that's kind of what I got.
Thank you. Isn't it interesting that as you were talking, how most men grew up not being vulnerable, being taught that it wasn't manly or to be expressive of your thoughts or emotions, to cry, to take pain and things like that. And you talked about how basically we have become hard or callous. And isn't it interesting that when you mentioned the women, that basically the same thing has started to happen to them because they had to become more resilient. And so now it's almost like the roles are reversed now. you know, men are wanting to talk, and now women are like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So in some cases, anyway. So I think it's
Mhm.
interesting you brought up that point as well. When you talk about the youth and them experiencing stress, um, what do you think is a big uh, impact on that stress, and just youth not really uh, being able to express their thoughts, or let's say the example I want to use is basically when they experience this stress, instead of being able to communicate it or talk it out, some do other things. They get into fights, or they hurt themselves, or they become violent. What instances like that. So I just want to know, what do you think are big contributors to those factors?
That's the only way they know how. I mean, not that it was taught, not that it was learned, but it's what the body told them to do. And you receive we all have a capacity, right? Capacity of what we can take in, but also a capacity for what we can give. Youth that hit start doing self harm, or getting the fights all the time. I always say with my kids, if you're angry all the time, where is your sadness? Where's your sadness at? You know what? You telling me you're so mad. You're making this mad face, and then I'm smiling at them. Then they start smiling. I'm like, okay, you smiling, but I still want to know where you sad at. That is all they know, and they feel. I think it developmentally as a child, we take in everything that we see in our community. We're like constantly learning. We're constantly like, oh, this is a new piece of knowledge. We may not intentionally or consciously be like, oh, I'm learning new things every day. No, we're just still learning though. You're taking these things and you're seeing things at home, you're seeing things on TV, you're seeing things on TikTok. We're constantly taking in this knowledge. For youth, especially, that is all they know. If no one else told them, hey, you don't have to fight to get your point across, why would I do something different? I don't have to involve myself with self harm to show that I need help. Why would I do something different? Engaging in those things is all I know. And until someone tells me otherwise, well, actually, even if someone told me otherwise, if I have been taught this or shown this, or this is something that has been ingrained in my nervous system, in my way of thinking, it's going to take a lot for somebody to change that. And then maybe, just maybe, I cannot engage in those things. So a lot of the work I do with kids who, like I said, want to fight. Okay, look, you want to fight? Then I'll tell you what's going to happen if you continue to fight. If you want to not fight me, you can be angry with me. You can be angry in here, but out there, let's not be angry out there. I provide the space for them to do or be whatever they can be in a culturally responsive way, in a safe way. I'm not going to let you engage in self harm. I'm not going to let you engage in fighting me, but I'll allow you to feel those things that are rooted within those actions in the space that I provide. And then you get to go back out there and be what everybody wants you to be. But in here with me, you get to be what you need to be. So, um, my answer to that is that's all they know. I mean, it's what's ingrained in their system. And until they're taught otherwise, that's what they're going to have to have.
Thank you for holding space for those people, especially youth that are in those spaces, and so they need those protective places that they can go and download and learn something different, and also unlearn. Like you said, if nobody's ever taught them, they're going to resort to doing the things that they learned through growing up or watching TV, being
Mm.
around those certain people, and what have you. So, thank you for what you do for them. Excuse me. All right. So, for listeners new to the term, what is Sisu, and how does this deep inner determination help people push through hardship and build mental resilience?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk a little bit where I got the term from because I want to respect the culture, and then I'll talk what it means to me. So I attend weekly well, sometimes weekly. I try to. There's Black Men Heal. It's an organization that's out in Philly, and they host every Sunday virtual meeting where they just have a therapeutic space. It's not therapy, but it's kind of in between, just a bunch of brothers coming together and just discussing things that's going on in their life. One point, maybe about maybe 3 months ago, something like that, a brother in there described this word. He was like, man, I have this beef with resilience, man. Like people are using the word resilience in a derogatory way. He just wasn't vibing with it, which is okay. And I was like, I kind of hear what you're saying. And, through that, he said, what I like to use is the word Sisu. And Sisu comes from the Finnish culture. Um, and it refers to a deep internal strength that allows someone to just keep going, even when the circumstances feel overwhelming or uncertain. And when he said this, I was like, it sounds like you describing runner's high. Cause I used to run all the time. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm at my limit and I get that runner's high. I can just keep going forever and keep going, keep going. And I think what makes Sisu unique is it doesn't just describe resilience after like hardship. It describes the inner determination that shows up in the middle of hardship. So it's not just after the hardship. You went through this really tough thing and now you got resilience. No, it describes like within that moment, I also have strength within that hardship. And then when someone might feel like they've reached their limit, they can still continue with the strength that they've gotten within the hardship and after. So I think even in conversations with mental health, Sisu kind of reminds us or reminds me, and I try to impart that language onto others, that us as human beings, we have an incredible capacity to just persevere, but also it challenges us to think about perseverance in a deeper way. When I'm not hating on resilience, but I will say, oftentimes when resilience is used, it can be used in a derogatory way. You're resilient. You have so much resilience. So Sisu isn't about pretending, to me, that things are easy or ignoring emotional pain. It's more about acknowledging difficulty while still remaining committed to growth, committed to purpose, and just moving forward. So in a sense, Sisu represents to me courage and then endurance. It's the quiet strength that um, often exists between the surface of people's lives, and I think in my life as well.
All right. Thank you. For I think you hit on this a little bit, um, but for Black communities, um, we've shown resilience through generations of adversity, and so how do you see parallels between Sisu and the strength that has long existed within our communities?
Hmm. I think I would say the parallels between Sisu and the Black community is very strong, and that's why I think I resonated with it a lot. The idea of Sisu and the resilience that has existed within the Black community for generations, like throughout history, Black communities have faced enormous adversity. I mean, systemic injustice, economic barriers, social discrimination, but we are still, despite all those challenges, continued. I mean, our community has just continued to create art, culture, scholarship. I remember like last night, the Oscars, right? Um, and just the excitement I got from watching Michael B. Jordan getting an Oscar for Best Actor, and like he's just an actor, probably lives within all the things he's had to go through. I know recently he had an experience where someone in the crowd said something derogatory to him. That to me is Sisu. So having to, despite all those challenges, still cultivate culture, scholarship, innovation, social movements that just shape the world and make change, and inspire other people to be like, oh man, like I don't, not saying I want to be you, but I admire you and I cherish you. You push me forward. So the perseverance reflects, I feel like that perseverance just reflects a kind of like collective strength that resembles the concept of Sisu. It's the ability to keep building and creating and striving, even when the circumstances are difficult, because they are right now. However, I think it's important to acknowledge like that resilience should not be romanticized. Um, Strength should never be used as an excuse to ignore suffering, if that makes sense. Communities deserve opportunities. Ours deserves so many opportunities, and not only to demonstrate strength, but also just experience healing and support. I think even though we have resonated with Sisu so much, we do deserve, on the other end, to experience that healing, to experience that support. So when we talk about resilience in the Black community, when we talk about Sisu, I think it's important to hold space that, yes, we have this long history and it's continuing to go till this day of all of this stuff and all the strength that we are amassing, especially for our new youth. But at the same time, that strength exists because of a lot of things that we shouldn't have gone through. Um, and it just kind of promotes an ongoing need for systems that promote well-being and equity. And that's something I hope, you know, for me and many of the other clinicians out there in the field, we continue to promote and change.
Sounds like a good question. Why are you strong? Why are you resilient? Why are you persistent? Why don't you ever back down, back off, cave in, or quit? Why is it that you continue to pursue and to struggle and to go forward? And I like how you said that many of us are the way that we are, obviously, because of what we went through and had to go through and endure. So, and that's what helped make us. But like you said, some of the things that we may have endured or persisted through, we shouldn't have had to fight through that fight. And then so there comes people like you and other supporters that give us that safe space or that brave space to you know take off the facade, if you will, and then be able to express and talk about what's the things that are really going on that causes us to respond to certain things that we respond to, or how we respond to certain things. In today's terms, a lot of people like to use the word trigger,
Yeah.
um, which you know that's becoming a buzzword now. I feel triggered. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That many of the people that whatever they've had to survive, sometimes it's not something that you should have to survive one way or the other, but that's the way that you were built and that you were made and that you survived it and you're able to share your story. I think is always good when you're able to sit down and tell somebody and receive that healing, and then you're able to share it with other people, because many times people feel like they're the only one that is going through a particular situation, but it's always surprising to find out that no, you weren't the only one that went through a particular situation. And so that helps a lot of people move forward, and it also helps people with forgiveness as well, as they learn about different stories and why people behave the way that they behave. So thank you for your comment. Now, sometimes the expectation for us to always be strong can become such a burden to us. So how do we balance strength and perseverance with the need to acknowledge pain and not be afraid to seek support?
I think I'll come from a more mental health background. One of the most important lessons mental health teaches us is that strength and vulnerability are not opposites. Kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. We live in a society where that may be the framework, especially for our men. That teaching them very early on being vulnerable is a weakness, when in actuality it should be a strength. Many people grow up believing that strength means handling everything alone, but in reality, uh, one of the most powerful forms of strength is the willingness to just ask for help and allow others to support you. And I think vulnerability allows people to process experiences rather than carrying them silently. And that right there is like the truest form of strength. It creates a space for connection, empathy, and healing. All words, you're like, man, those sound great. Like, why can't we do that more? So I think with balancing strength with vulnerability, even healthy communities are not necessarily defined on how well people hide their struggles. They're defined how well people support each other through those struggles. And that's from my personal experience with them being in mental health and what I see. That is what pushes people forward. Balancing perseverance with openness allows, I think, individuals to just remain strong without becoming emotionally isolated.
All right. Thank you for that conversation. Thank you for the conversation we are having so far. I hope everybody out there is hearing what we're talking about. That you're learning something from the conversation tonight. The title is Where Sisu Lives, and we're not done. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Jadarius Evans. We're going to talk about so much more. And we even want those of you that are out there listening to the show, if you gleaned something from tonight's show so far, we're going to be dropping our link in the chat boxes. So if you want to come up on the platform and maybe ask myself or Jadarius or both of us a question, or make a comment about something that you received from watching the podcast tonight, feel free to do so. So we'll be dropping that in, but we're going to go to a commercial and we're going to be right back with more discussion with Jadarius Evans on Where Sisu Lives. So don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There's a scripture that I love. It's Mark 11:24. Believe that you have received it and it is yours. If we could just master that one principle in our lives, we would see so many transformations. But the hardest thing for us to do is to hold the vision that God has given to us in a tough and an enduring season of our lives. I want you to see whatever that thing is on your vision board, whatever that thing is in your heart, whatever that thing is in your journal, whatever that thing is that you've been praying to God about. I want you to see it already happening now. Not in the future, now. Not 10 years from now, now. So when you have a vision locked in your brain of what will happen, not what might happen, what will happen, everything begins to alter itself to come into your orbit. I see a few people getting it. If God showed it to me and I hold it in my heart long enough, everything is going to move in my favor. That's when I have these rare and these confirmation occurrences. That's when you bump into somebody at the grocery store random and they have the very information that you've been looking for, and you say to yourself, oh girl, this is so much confirmation. It's not confirmation. It is your divine power to create your reality.
Welcome to the club presented by DrWhitty. Here's this week's must read. There are over 50 types of doctoral degrees, but few ever share the real journey behind becoming a doctor. The Doctor Talker reveals the raw, inspiring stories of 6 scholars who overcame setbacks, self-doubt, and sacrifice to earn their doctorates. Curated by Dr. John C. Turner, this book is a blueprint for anyone chasing the dream. Real voices, real struggles, and real triumphs. Get your copy where books are sold. All right, I apologize for that. Welcome back to DrWhitty Today with me and Jadarius Evans. Hopefully, somebody out there is enjoying the show. If you want to come up and ask us a question or even make a comment about something that you might have gleaned from tonight's show, feel free to click on the link we posted in the chat and let us know. So, Jadarius, I'm hearing things shake, so that weather is kicking up out there. We had some what is it, tornado warning. So hopefully we won't have to worry about that tonight. Only good thing.
I think we had one yesterday.
All right, so let's get into our next question. You founded Project Heart, which uses photo voice to explore mental health among Black men and youth. What is photo voice, and why is it such a powerful tool for storytelling and healing?
Yeah, so photo voice is it's very powerful because it allows you to shift from the traditional research dynamic. So instead of researchers speaking for the communities, about the communities, it gives the community the power to talk about themselves through images and just stories. So, photography allows people to capture things that may be more difficult to express through words alone. So, even movements, environments, symbols, emotions, photo voice has been used traditionally in those senses to capture what that may be like. And I think the beauty behind photo voice is one, you never know what you're gonna get. You can give a prompt and say, take a picture of, how you view your family environment. And someone in the family could take a picture of a fire. Someone could take a picture of a butterfly, or someone could take a picture of the sun. And then the story behind that, you don't know what they're gonna say. And I think that's the beauty behind photo voice. So in many ways, photo voice is to me both a research method, but it's also a healing process. And I feel like as a mental health clinician, that's why I lean more towards it a lot, especially with the research that I want to do and I am doing, because it allows individuals to see their stories, acknowledged and just valued, and then also share others. Like that's a big part of photo voice, being able to share those pictures with others, and then you see what everybody else took pictures of on the same prompt. It allows this I like to say, I'm not looking, especially when I'm doing photo voice studies, I'm not looking to generalize a topic. I'm looking to show transference between the people within that group, and then people outside that group can also transfer something from these photos as well. So that's to me why photo voice is such a major thing.
And if I'm correct, aren't you currently working on something involving photo voice?
Yeah, actually, I am hopefully wrapping up right now. I have the manuscript hopefully almost done by this week, and we'll be submitting that to a journal that will publish it. So I will be publishing an article related to, like you mentioned, Project Heart, which stands for Hope, Empowerment, Advocacy, Resilience, and Transformation. All words that I hope to instill within the project. And this project is related to Black men and male youth, specifically with suicide, and allowing them to take pictures of how they view suicide in their community. So these youth took pictures of how they view suicide with their community, took those pictures. We came together as a group, discussed those pictures, dived in those pictures, named and themed those pictures. And I've written up a 30-some page manuscript. And I'll be publishing that pretty soon. So yeah.
All right, I can't wait. Make sure you let me know so I can
I will.
to look for it. Now, would you say what you do is considered trauma-informed care?
Oh yes, it has to be. Especially like I said, coming if I feel like for the voice is in alignment with a lot of mental health um, situations. So if I were to do another group, or if I continue to do groups, and when I do continue to do groups, it has to be trauma informed. Because, like I said, yeah, it's a beauty behind not knowing what you're going to get, but at the same time, it's a fear. Because if you don't have support for that person who may share something related to a topic, or share a picture that could be stimulating, like an alternative, if you were triggered, that could be stimulating to them and their experience and their livelihood, you got to be trauma informed. You got to be ready and be, as a clinician myself, be ready for something like that. Especially if we're doing a study that's more personal experience, tailored towards those experiences. So, yeah, I would say trauma informed has to be. It's a must.
All right, thank you. All right, so leadership requires discipline, tough decision under pressure. How can the idea of Sisu help leaders build the mental strength and emotional awareness needed to lead effectively?
Hmm, that's a good question. I'd say, like you said, leadership often requires people to make difficult decisions, right? They got to navigate uncertainty, they got to remain focused, even when challenges arise. Almost sounds like Sisu itself. So I think the concept of Sisu can be helpful in understanding the kind of mental health strength of it all. So that leadership requires all those things, right? But at the same time, leadership requires awareness. And I think that's what Sisu fosters, awareness. So leaders must offer or often continue to move forward, even when the path is unclear. To be a leader, you got to be the first one out there. But true leadership isn't just about endurance, in my opinion. It's about their emotional awareness. It's about their empathy. It's about their reflection. So leaders who embody Sisu are grounded in their values, and they remain committed to their mission while also recognizing the importance of learning, recognizing the importance of listening, and also supporting the people around them. Because without those things and those characteristics, are you really a leader? Or are you just someone just standing in the dark trying to figure out where we're going? So I think when leaders combine perseverance with emotional intelligence, they create an environment where others can also grow and thrive. And I think, to me, that's what a leader actually is: someone who can not only grow themselves but also foster the people that they are leading to grow.
Exactly, I agree with that. I think it's also impactful that you mentioned that leaders need to have empathy, because I think that's where a lot of us go wrong, is not having that empathy for the people that we serve. And I said serve on purpose, because we always use the term lead, but
Mhm.
are you are you serving the people that you're allegedly leading? And so a lot of, well, not a lot of the times, pretty much all the time, you have to be able to exercise a level of empathy to be able to
Mhm.
relate to all the individuals that you lead, to be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, to put yourself in that person's place, to learn something about that person that means something important to them, going back to being more culturally humble as a person first, but also as a leader second. And so I just think it's really important for leaders and people in general to just be able to exercise empathy um, whenever possible, because I believe that's a real way to connect with just about anybody that you would intentionally try to connect to. Connectivity, relation, it's all about intention. And so you have to be able to figure out a way to connect with the people that you lead, and you can do it through empathy and through self-awareness, and
Mhm.
just being humble. So thank you for that comment. Now, as a South Carolina's legislative ambassador for the National Board of Certified Counselors, what policy changes are most needed to improve mental health access in underserved communities, in your opinion?
I'm gonna touch a little bit on the legislative ambassador, and now I'm gonna touch on that latter end of the question. So for NBCC, for many viewers out there, that's the National Award for Certified Counselors. That's who licensed myself and also DrWhitty. Amazing organization. They're making strides into the policy and legislative lane, and they see a lot of value being in that lane because people who are informed like us have information on the ground, boots and feet and everything on the ground, ears to the ground on what is needed. So for me, all this is skewed from the mental health aspect. Luckily enough, I was chosen to be South Carolina's legislative ambassador, which basically means that I'm working to figure out what does the legislative and policy landscape look like here in South Carolina, and how might NBCC can support that in a federal way. How do we connect the state and how do we connect the federal and bring them together and make it a little bit easier to get some things passed? For me, improving access here in underserved communities, I always think back to where I'm from because I personally feel like I came from an underserved community. I think that requires very meaningful and intentional policy change. So one major priority is uh, kind of what I mentioned very early on, expanding mental health workforce. Like I said, a lot of what I think is mental health skewed, but I think is very much needed. So expanding the mental health workforce and increasing the number of culturally humble providers who understand that their communities they serve come from different backgrounds. That is first and foremost for me. I feel like that's something that's needed everywhere. But another important step, I think, is investing in community based mental health initiatives, not necessarily agencies, but initiatives, those grassroots programs that bring services directly into the neighborhoods, into the schools, into the community organizations. We need those. We need that middle ground in between, people who don't know about therapy versus people who are full force into therapy. We are missing this big gap in between where people, and that's where the stigma comes from people don't know about these things. Education just on basic things that, well, basic to me, such as how fight or flight is, or how your amygdala is affected, or your nervous system. People don't know about this stuff, but also people don't know about nutrition. People don't know about physical wellness. People don't know about spirituality. That's all things in that middle gap that we can help support and bring to the last one, which will be therapy. We need more things like that. And then finally, I think mental health outcomes are very closely related to, in my experience, and just on the people I work with, the more broader social factors. So housing stability, education, and economic opportunity. Three big things I feel like are very important here in South Carolina that need a lot of attention. Because of that, I think improved mental health access requires collaboration across multiple different sectors. Not just healthcare system. So I think policy decisions really shaped really are by who receives the care, and then how the services are delivered for mental health. That's something that's tailored by the community. If I'm coming solely from my community on Chester, that's going to look very different compared to the city of Charlotte or the city of Greenville, even where I'm currently residing. You know, it needs to be personally tailored. And of course, that's not all on the policy work, but we do need to get the people who can do those things and can see from those layers in a systemic way so that we can then provide the resources and the help to get those people the access that they need and that they deserve.
All right. Excuse me. Great. Now, let's see. In your work with individuals, families, and communities, what are some ways people can begin to cultivate the kind of inner strength and discipline that Sisu represents?
I think the cultivation of the inner strength, specifically with Sisu, I think it represents, it begins with reflection and connection. Kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier. Sisu, I think, oftentimes builds self-awareness. Like you're aware of it when you're going through the adversity. So having that awareness and doing things, as I was just saying, that middle ground. The people who don't know anything about mental health therapy, all that stuff, versus the people who know all about therapy and who are all in their mental health journey. The middle part, I think that's where we need people to cultivate that sisu and that self awareness. Even I think it plays a very huge role. And yes, therapy is one outlet, but I don't think it's the only outlet. There's so many different ways to get in touch with that inner strength that you have. And that can be down to just community dialogue, creative expression. It can just help people understand their experiences and build emotional awareness. And then supportive relationships as well also play a huge role, specifically in communities such as minority communities. Strength often develops through the presence of other people. So people who encourage us, challenge us, and remind us of our capacity during difficult moments, that in itself builds so much for us to continue to put forward. So Sisu to me isn't something people are simply born with. It's something that develops over time as individuals navigate challenges and then learn from those experiences and remain committed to growth.
All right. So I like how you said Sisu can be developed, and I think it can be something ingrained in our character. So, and like you said, self-awareness is a big piece. And so, just talking about mental health, it's good to be self-aware of what's going on, and then for you to, as a person, to be able to uh, put things in place that assist you. Excuse me. Say for instance, if it's something negative that impacts you, if you're aware of that and you are aware of, when it happens, how it happens, who might be a person that contributes to that, you can put yourself in other places, or you can surround yourself with encouraging people, or you have these outlets that you can set up that you can make sure that you're not being, pulled into that trap, if you will. So I think it's good, like you said, in order to have that, resilience and that discipline, it's going to take some learning. It's going to take unlearning and learning,
Yeah.
just a willingness to be open and vulnerable, so that you can get the knowledge and the information that you need, because sometimes people don't even know that they experience trauma. It's like a everyday thing, or it's just me, or this is just how I am, or this is just how I've always been, not knowing that the way you've always been could be a problem.
Yeah.
So just being able to open up and have that conversation and be around people that provide and offer that safe space to be vulnerable. So like you said, I think all of that helps to build that character, and to be able to be a person that someone would look at and say, Sisu lives there, or lives
Yeah.
in you. So, yeah,
I think it's also kind of an empowerment thing as well, to be able to take and like I began with resilience, it can oftentimes be thrown in a derogatory way. It's like throwing a punch at somebody. Being able to say Sisu lives within myself, and I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to take ownership of.
exactly. And the other thing is we all need those examples. Like you said, um, there was somebody that push through or forge their way, or overcome significant challenges. Every time you look, maybe somebody was going through something, or overcoming a challenge, whether it was a positive thing or a negative thing. But for you, no matter what the case, if you were blessed to witness that, that's also a way that you've used that person as an example of resilience and discipline. So when you find yourself going through something or needing to grow in an area, then you can use that person or their situation as as an image or a reminder that, okay, well, so and so did this and it worked, so let me try it. Or so and so did this, it didn't work, so I don't want to try it. So I think that's important. Sometimes we have to what do we call it? Sometimes when we don't have the discipline, or we don't have the mental capacity or the specific awareness, sometimes we have to think with somebody else's thoughts until we can get our own thoughts together. So, yeah, I like that. So thank you, Jadarius. It's been a great conversation, but we are not over yet because what we have at Dr. Whitty today is the lightning round. And what that is we will ask you a series of questions and we want you to answer it in at least, maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. Um, Everybody don't always make it, but it's all fun and we learn and we get great information and you'd be surprised at how it goes. So we'll do that, and then afterwards uh, we're gonna let you tell people where they can find you outside of Dr. Whitty today, and we'll go ahead and close out. So let me know when you're ready for that lightning round, and we're gonna go.
I'm ready.
All right. One word that describes your leadership style.
Compassionate.
What's one daily habit that helps protect your mental health?
I use an app that tracks the way I'm feeling. It's called the How We Feel app.
All right. If you could give young black men one piece of advice, what would it be?
Be you, stay strong, and understand that your strength is not a weakness, but it's whatever you define to be.
What's one simple practice people can use to strengthen their mental resilience?
Ground yourself. I personally don't put my feet in the ground, but some people do that.
A quote or phrase that motivates you.
It's from an old movie called. It has a character called Bruce Leroy, and the light. He was the light inside.
All right. I know that one. What helps you reset when life gets overwhelming?
A Sunday evening.
All right. What's one thing you wish more people understood about mental health?
It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray.
What's one barrier that still prevents many people in our communities from seeking mental health support?
Systemic oppression, injustice, and stigma.
What's one mindset shift you hope listeners take away from this conversation?
Being open with things, being able to just take another opinion and look at it.
All right. All right. And we have a legacy question. And let's see what it is. Here we go. Jadarius, when people think about your work, your presence, and the lives you've touched, what do you hope they remember about the way you showed Sisu, especially the moments no one else could see?
I think what I want people to remember is that if one person can do this and one person can connect with, 10 people, 20 people on a weekly basis, what can you do? You can be able to do the same thing. And also you can connect not with just as many people, but people who mean so much more to you, family, friends, being able to let them know what Sisu means and also how you carry it and acknowledge that awareness and bring awareness to not only yourself, but everyone else around you, the people who are within that close-knit circle. I like to say the world, we have control about 10% out of 90. The other 90% is everything outside of the world or everything outside of ourselves. So within that 10%, you get to control everything in that. So you get to pick it up and put it forward as to this information, everything that I shared tonight, and how you want to use it.
All right. Thank you, Jadarius. Great job tonight. I just thank you for being here. Definitely not the last time. So be making sure you look out in your inbox for the next time you come on the show. We'll talk about it later, though. I want you to remember restate the name of that app that you mentioned during the lightning round real quick. So if anybody wants to use it, they can get it.
It's just called How We Feel.
All right, How We Feel. And I wanted you to say that because I used to use a app myself, which now that app is obsolete. So I'll have to find another one. But it was an app that was basically you could program supporters in the app, their names and phone numbers. And if I, experienced a mental health episode, or if I just needed a supporter or somebody to talk to, I didn't have to do anything except press the red button, and the phone would call and reach out to those people and let them know that I needed to speak to somebody for whatever reason. And then that person, like say if the first person didn't answer, it would go call the next person. So that was a pretty cool app that I heard about, and I decided that I'd download it. So I'm definitely gonna check out the one that you just mentioned. So thank you for all of that. I think some key points to remember is, if you need mental health services, or even if you just want to get some awareness about it, that you should check it out. Don't underestimate, but don't overestimate therapy. It can help, but it's not the end all be all. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable, to open up, to share your different experiences or your stories, because you never know that as you're sharing it, you're helping not only yourself, but you're also helping other people. Another thing is, like he said, awareness, connection. Everything about legacy. When Jadarius spoke on legacy, just remember that it's not about things we leave behind, but it's about every life that we touch while we're here. So keep that in mind. Jadarius, let all the viewers know where they can find you outside of DrWhitty Today.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can just type in my full name. You can find me on there.
All right. And as far as DrWhitty Today, we are on every other Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We may be moving back to 7 p.m., but right now it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our platforms are Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also Twitch. So you can watch us there. Thank everybody out there for tuning in tonight. We hope you guys learned something, that the term Sisu awoke or awakened something in you, and let us all get started on our healing journeys, and just be able to support each other, and then be better people toward each other. So thank everybody for tuning in. Great episode with our host Jadarius Evans, and we want to thank you once again. Don't be a stranger. So until the next time, folks, we'll see you. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on DrWhitty Today. We appreciate your time, and your viewership is the heartbeat of our show. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, subscribe. Your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to have you back. So hit the notification bell to find out each time we air live. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, stay motivated, and stay tuned.